And welcome to the 11 plus preparation course for year 5. This is also used for accelerating your child or your own learning. This is autumn 1 week 3. We are starting off with English today, so take out those English books, and if you don't have an English book, then you can always grab a sheet of paper for you to write down your notes, and then you can file this later. So make sure you've got your stationery ready, because you'll be needing to underline, highlight, draw lines. So yep, bring out those stationery kits. And what are we looking at today? We're looking at suffixes. On the top right hand side of your paper or your book, write down the long date. And we have our learning objectives for today, and that is to understand what suffixes are and how they're formed, and for you to be able to construct your own suffixes and perhaps using them in your own sentences. So if you need to, please press pause so you can write these down, and remember, along the video, press pause when you need to, should you need more time. So what is a suffix? Now, in our previous lesson, we looked at what a prefix was, and we looked at the word pre, and we established that pre means before, and that was an indicator. That was one way of us to realize and to remember for the future that it's attaching letters at the beginning of a root word. So this time we're looking at a suffix. So what are suffixes? Now, if we split this word into two, we have the word fix on the end. So that's a good little tip there, to fix something, but fix what? And then we've got the beginning part of suffix begins with a S and a U. And I always remember this word as, or part of this word as, supporting. So the S and the U in the word supporting, and they are letters at the end of the word. So its suffix means letters that you fix to the end of a word. So remember, you can write these down, and look what I've done. I've used great colors and I've spread them out. I've used arrows, and this is how you can organize your thoughts on paper. So please press pause if you need to when you're writing out your lovely notes. So let's look at some detail, and you can jot these down as well. Suffixes, underline this please in nice big words or letters. What are suffixes? This is our subheading, and it's got a question mark. Remember, your capital letters need to look bigger and taller than your other letters. A suffix is a string of letters which is placed at the end of a root word. Adding it to the end of the word changes its meaning. For example, when we add the word "ly" to a root word, for example, happy, if we were to put "ly" on the end of happy, it creates a new word, happily. So happy, add the suffix, becomes happily. Now, some words, as you may have already noticed, you have to change the spelling to it. So happy ends with a Y, but when we attach or fix ly to it, we've had to drop the Y for an I. Okay, so when you're writing out these notes, note these things down, highlight them if you need to. And at the bottom here, we have a few more root words with new suffixes. So we have the word happily, sadly, carefully, carelessly, strangest, bravest, rounder and colder. So notice the ends of these words and have a think about how it has changed the meaning and how we can now use these words in our sentences. Don't forget to press pause if you need to. Remember, these notes are very important. Now, if you've met me before, you know I love my drawing. I love drawing because these diagrams help us to remember things. So here's a picture of a root word, and I've got the word bake. Notice at the bottom of this plant, I've got some roots, and that is the word bake. And the reason why we call it a root word is because from this one word, we can create other words. So we've got baker, baked, baking. So these are just a few examples that you can use. Can you think of any of your own? Now you can draw this picture. I would think it would be brilliant if you could draw this picture. It doesn't have to be a Mona Lisa, but you draw a picture of a plant, you put the root word at the bottom, and you give some examples around the top where the leaves would be, because you've got a lot of things to remember. So drawing these little tips, these little stories with all of these words that you need to know, later on, years down the line, you'll still remember them. So that's why it's handy to draw diagrams. Remember, press pause if you need to. Now here are some examples of some suffixes that you may have come across, and you should have come across. So the different suffixes change the meaning of the root word in different ways. Here are a few: the suffix li, happily; the suffix ist, bravest; the suffix kinder; the suffix ing, knocking; the suffix ed, walked; the suffix ness, kindness. Now you should be writing this down in your exercise books. Now while you're writing these down, if you've noticed on my right hand side here, I've got some blue lines. Those blue lines are not there just for show. What I'd like you to do is write some examples of your own. Now be careful, because sometimes, as you've noticed with happily, you may have to change the spelling slightly to be able to fix some of these letters on the end. So what I'd like you to do for this activity is not only write down these notes, but find and write down some examples for each of these suffixes. And if you think of any other, then by all means, jot them down. Now here are some more suffixes for you to have some fun with. We've got the suffix "ance," tolerance; the suffix "graph," telegraph; the suffix "ship" for friendship; the suffix "bull" for changeable; the suffix "uri," stationary; and the suffix "t," cruelty. Now what are you going to do with these? You're not just going to write them down. You're going to find some more with these suffixes and jot them down. And if you've got the pack from us, if you're doing our course, you have got plenty in there to practice with. So have fun. Remember, press pause, use your different color pens and highlighters if needed, so you will get a chance to remember these, and try and find as many as you can using the internet or using a thesaurus. You can also use a dictionary. You can ask an adult. It's a good chance for you to have some fun with these words. Now we're moving on to maths. So take out your maths books. Remember, if you don't have a maths book, do not fear. You can grab some sheets of paper, you can write your notes on them, and then you can file them. Make sure you look after your notes. Very important. So make sure you have your right equipment to write these notes. So let's have a little recap on adding and subtracting fractions. Let's think of a sum here. Let's do 1/2 add 1/3. Now, when you're adding subtractions, you can't go across and say 2 add 3, 1 add 1. It doesn't work that way. See, these denominators, they have to change because they need to be exactly the same. So we've got to be a little bit clever, and the way to change these is by multiplying, okay, or sometimes dividing. But we need to think of a way to use our multiplication facts to be able to change these denominators to make them the same. Because when we do that, let's have a little look. I've got a fraction here. This is half, and this is my lovely chocolate cake. You're going to hear a lot about my chocolate cake because I like chocolate cake. And this is what we know as half. Now, if I've got my lovely chocolate cake again, this one's a gatto. Now, if I was to halve this again and again, it gives me quarters, right? But if I was to eat my lovely chocolate cake, hubba hubba, here's my chocolate cake. If I was to eat 2/4, we know that 2/4 is actually the same as eating half. So although the figures have increased, the value of the fraction is the same. So when you have to, whether you have to divide by 2, or if you have to multiply by 2, whichever way it goes, if if you have to multiply it by 2. 2 times 2 is 4, or 1 times 2 is 2, or 2 divided by 2 is 1. Whichever way it goes, the value is going to stay the same. So now we have to change these so that they look the same. So what I want to do is I want to turn these into 6s, because I'm thinking if I multiply this, let's use another color. If I was to multiply this by 2, here, because I've got a 2 here, look. If I multiply that by 2, multiply this by 2, and then if because I've got a 3 here, the opposite, I'm going to multiply that by 3, multiply by 3. What's going to happen? Well, 1 times 3 is now 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2, and 3 times 2 is 6. So now my denominators are the same, but do not fear, because remember the value is the same. This is what we looked at earlier. If any time you need to pause, to recap, to watch again, to understand better, go for it. That's what you need to do. And remember, you're writing your notes as we go along. If you need to use different color pens, again, that's a great idea, because it helps us to think clearly. Now, with the adding, we can go ahead and do the simple adding now. Now we can do 3 plus 2, which is 5. We can go ahead and do the operation. And 6s, will they stay the same? So now we know that 5/6 is the answer. 1/2 plus 1/3 is 5/6. Okay, now we are looking at subtractions too, and subtracting, it's the same rule applies. So let me get my black pen out. Let me think of a question. Let's do 4/5 subtracting 3/7. Okay, so now we can't do anything. Everything stops because the denominators are not the same. So here I've got a 5. Here I've got a 7. So the easiest thing that I can do right now is to multiply this side by the 7, because I've got it there. And I'm going to multiply this side by the 5. Now, we do something really fun. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. But we call this the X factor. Because look, the 7 multiplied by the 4, and 7 multiplied by the 5, and the 5 multiplied by the 3 and the 7. All right, so yeah, we have that little bit of a laugh sometimes if you want to. It's good ways, you know, if you're making a joke out of these things, it's easier for you to remember. So let's have a look at our new sums here, or our new fractions. 3 times 5 is 15. Let's get on that. So 15 it is, 15 at the top. And 7 times 5 is 35. And remember, if you don't know your times tables, you need to know them. Write them down on the side if you need to, but the more you keep on, the repetition is going to help you. And here our new fraction becomes 4 times 7 is, what is it? What is it? It's 28, of course. 5 times 7 is, hey, it's 35. So look, this is just what we wanted, 35 at the bottom. So when I want to do my taking away here, I know 35, because my denominators stays the same, that's going to be like this. And then I want to do 28 take away 15. That's too big to do my head, so I'm going to do column subtraction. 8 take away 5 is 3. 2 take away 1 is 1. The answer is 13. And there you go. That's the answer, 13 over 35. So 4/5 take away 3/7 is 13 over 35. Okay, so this is what we did last week. If you want to go over this again, please watch the previous video, and there should be enough for you to practice with in your pack. Remember, press pause if you need to. So we're looking at adding fractions where the denominators must be the same. We're looking at another example here, 4/6 plus 3/9. So what do we do here? This is what we call the X factor. And this is when we're using the denominators in both of, so here are the denominators of both sides, the 6 and the 9, and we're going to multiply each side, okay, with each of the denominators. So let's have a look. 4, we multiply that by 9 because then there's a 9 here, and we'll multiply this one by 9. Then we're going to multiply the 3 by the 6 and the 9 by the 6, okay, because the denominator here was 6. And we're doing this because we want the fractions to look different. The values will be the same, but it will just look different. So now this fraction here looks like this. 4 times 3 is 36. 6 times 9 is 54. And let's have a look at this new fraction here. 3 6s are 18. And 9 6s is also 54. So this is brilliant because now these denominators are the same. And now we can carry on with the adding. Okay, because now our fractions look different. So now let's have a look at what needs to happen next. We can now do 36 plus 18, which is also 54. And this denominator is going to stay the same, which is also 54. And now we know we can simplify this, can't we? We can simplify this because now this also means it's one whole. And that is how we do this. So let's have a look at simplifying a fraction. Now we've got the answer 20 over 18, which is the answer. But this answer, 20 over 18, has got a slight problem. The problem is that this is what we call a top-heavy fraction. And the actual terminology for this is an, let's write this down, improper fraction. And it's called an improper fraction because it's not proper. Okay, it's not proper. It should have a smaller numerator and a larger denominator. So we've got to sort this out. We can simplify this fraction. So this is what we're going to do. Listen very carefully. We need to find out how many sets of 18 there are in 20. So how many 18s are there in 20? There are only one set. Okay? So how many 20s are there in 18s in 20? So the way you could do that is do this. Another way to explain this. How many 18s? 18 divided by 20. So how many 18s are there in 20? There is only one. And there are 2 left over. So the 2 left over, I'm going to put that here. And what do I put for this denominator? Well, this denominator here was 18, so that remains the same. So we have now got an answer 1 whole and 2/18. Now this answer can also be simplified further. Now the 1 stays the same, but that 2 can be divided by 2, as can the 18 be divided by 2, which will give me my new simplified 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So our new answer here is 1 whole and 1/9. Now this is the same as, these two are the same as 20/18, but we simplified it once and we simplified it again, and this is what it looks like at its lowest form. You can write these down as your notes and see if you can give it a go yourself. Now you are absolutely going to love these because they're so easy. Look, 3/4 multiplied by 2/2, not 2/2, 2/3 is, and all you have to do is you multiply across. Okay? You just multiply across. So 3 times 2 is, yes, and 4 times 3 is, that's right, 12. Good. And that's the answer, 6/12. Now all you have to do now is, if you're able to simplify it, that means to make it smaller, you can, but that's all you do. Let's do another one. It's so easy, I want to do another one. Let's do it. 7/8 multiplied by 3/9 equals 7 times 3 is, yep, 21. 8 times 9 is, yes, 72, and that's the answer, 21/72. Isn't that easy? So this is how you do multiplying with fractions. And remember, simplify where you can. So here we could have done 6 divided by 2, 12 divided by 2, because what you do to the top, you do to the bottom. Let's have a look at another example. So 4/7 multiplied by 3/6. And these are brilliant because they are so easy. We love these. 4 times 3, look, is 12. And 7 multiplied by 6 is 42. And that is it. We've done it. So the answer is 12/42. But both these numbers are even. So guess what? We can try to simplify now. We can make the digits smaller, but the value will stay the same. And you should know how to do these, but let's have another look at it just in case. So we've got to look at what factor do both of these have in common. And we both know that 2, because they're both even, that 2 go into 12s and 2 goes into 42 as well. So we do 12 divided by 2, which is 6, and we do 42 divided by 2, which is 21. And that's how you simplify it. So our new fraction is 6/21. And remember, that has the same value as 12/42. So let's look at some more simplifying here. We have got 6/21, and this can be simplified because we know that both these numbers come in the 3 times tables. Okay, so a factor of 6 is 3, and a factor of 21 is also 3. So what we can do here is we can divide both by 3. Remember, what you do to the top, you do to the bottom. And then we will get a simplified answer of 2/7. So let's have another look at a different question here. 4/7 multiplied by 3/6 equals, and I know we know the answer already on the side, but this is how we worked out. Remember, multiplying fractions are dead easy. It's 4 multiplied by 3, which is 12, and 7 multiplied by 6, which is 42. And then you've got to think, how can I divide this? Now, we know that the 2's go into 12 and the 2's go into 42. So you could do this. And we know that will be 6 over 21. And then you can divide it again and think, right, what else can go in here? How about dividing it by 2 again? Well, we can't do that because 21 won't be able to divide by 2, can we? So we've got to think of another question or another factor. How about 3? Will 3 go into 6? Yes. And will 3 go into 21? Well, does it? Yes, it does. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. And 21 divided by 3 is 7. Okay, and you keep on doing this process until you get to the lowest form where you can't simplify any longer. All right, so this is how you do it. Press pause if you need to, rewind, watch again, so that you understand this completely. So we're now looking at dividing fractions. Now you are going to absolutely love these because they are just as easy. So let's have a look at a couple of examples. Let's do 2/3 divided by 1/3. Okay, now to do this, you are going to flip. Okay, so these are the tricks that we're going to give you. Our tips and tricks is flip and change. Flip and change. So first we flip, and we are going to flip the second fraction. So the fraction or the equation now looks like this: 2/3 divided by, and flip it over. Okay, so now we've flipped it. And then we do change. And what are we changing? We're changing the operation. So it did look like that. This is the next step. It now looks like this: 2/3 multiplied by 3/1. And then we go and do the operation. Remember, when you're multiplying, it's so easy. All we have to do is go across. So 2 times 3 is, what is it? 6. And what is 3 times 1? 3. And that's the answer. And now you can simplify. Remember, you should be writing notes as we go along here. So you can simplify. So you find out how many sets of 3, how many 3's are there in the 6. So let's do a bus stop method here. How many 3's are there in 6? There are 2. So the answer is 2 wholes, because there are no remainders. There are no remainders, and that is the answer. Remember, press pause, rewind, write your notes, understand it, and then carry on. There's plenty to do in the pack. Now, here are some for you to try. I have 3/4 divided by 4/5. And the other question here is 7/9 divided by 1/3. Now, have a go. Remember, go by step. And if you need to look at your notes, then please press pause and do so. Press pause when you're doing this question because the answers are about to come up any moment now. So here we have the answers. If you don't want to look at the answers, press pause, rewind, close your eyes, do something. Now, I'm going to go through how to work these out. So we've got 3/4, divided by 4/5, and the answer was 15/16. Let's have a look at the process. 3/4 divided by 5/4 equals, now to do this, we flip them over, so the 5 and the 4 have now flipped places, switched over, and then we do the straight over, the straight across multiplying, so it's 3 multiplied by 5, which gave me 15, and 4 multiplied by 4, which was 16, and that was the answer. Let's have a look at the next one. 7/9 divided by 1/3. The answer was 2 wholes and 2/9. Let's see what we did here. We flipped, so the 3 and the 1 changed places, and then we multiplied across. 7 times 3 was 21, and 9 times 1 was 9. Now that is the answer, 21/9. But we can simplify, and so we did. We looked at how many sets of 9 are there in 21. So we did 21 divided by 9. And we know there are 2 sets. So that's why I know there are 2 wholes. And then I had 2 remainder. So that 2 is a new numerator. And because the denominator, the answer was 9, I keep the 9. Okay, so the answer was 2 wholes and 2/9. Remember, press pause, write notes, rewind if you need to. This is what it's all about. So here we have now the verbal reasoning, VR. So if you are writing these in your verbal reasoning books, if you don't have a verbal reasoning book, you might be doing this in the back of your English books. And remember, if you don't have either, what do? Yep, you got it. You grab a sheet of paper and you start writing down your notes, and you can file them or stick them in your books later. So today we are looking at the VR type M, and these are complete the sentences. So what do? We complete the sentences. With these questions, you are given a sentence which contains a group of 3 words in brackets. So you have a sentence and you have 3 choices of words to use. You need to lose a word from each set of the brackets to complete the sentence. So let's see, the boy loved his pet. Now, was it a pet ant, pet zebra, or pet dog? We have to choose. He would take it to the park, disco, or school every day and play with its hat, ball, or zip. Now, we've got to make the sensible decision, the wise choices that will make sure that this sentence makes sense in its context. So you can see we've highlighted already. The boy loved dog, his pet dog. He would take it to the park every day and play with its ball. And there we have it. Now, if you're doing the course with us, you would and should have been given a pack. So in your pack, you've got plenty to practice with. If you get stuck, there are explanations there. Take your time. Remember to ask us any questions or ask a grown-up should you need any help. But then the most important thing is have fun, because these are quite good and quite fun to do. Now, you hopefully should have the pack that we have provided you with this course. When you go to the pack, remember it's really important for you to review your work. Review means you look over your work with fresh eyes, you mark it, highlight anything that is incorrect, you go over it again, and you need to keep asking yourself, why is it wrong? What have I done wrong? Once you understand what is wrong, then you are ahead of your game, okay? And you will get things right in the future. If you just leave your work and you do not review your work, you won't get any better, because you're not going to know what's wrong and why it's wrong. So this part of your homework is absolutely crucial. All right. So if you've got any questions and you're still stuck, by all means, you can get in touch with us. You can send us a little message, and don't forget to subscribe and like. See you next time.